Hello YouTube, and I suppose I deserve to look this bad-skinned on my webcam today, but for some reason I am. So just bringing you a small video on John Searl. John Searl has been making many claims over the years to have created flying discs. Some of his discs have been apparently, so we are told, sent across the UK by radio amateurs controlling them, and these flying discs have been registered on radar and with the Civil Aviation Authority. And I'm like, okay, right, okay. I'm detecting a little bit of bullshit here, but let's see where this goes. The thing is, nobody has shown us any footage of Mr. Searl with a disc being powered up, flying into the air. And just have to do a bit of snuff because it braces you up for the reality of this. If there is no video footage of said discs and no cine footage, this is very peculiar because, I mean, every aircraft that's ever flown, they've tried to photograph and film this, and I think you can pretty much guarantee that if this was a real thing, that it wouldn't just be snapshot photographs or on a piece of string, you know, flying saucers behind a head, woo, 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 yeah, like that type photographs that you would be coming up with. You would have had cine footage. Now, there's no excuses for this because we know that people around Mr. Searl had cine cameras because they were able to photograph and make cine film of them making a wooden saucer-shaped object, which probably never left the ground. But strangely enough, lots of photos of things on the ground. Lots of things on the ground with people around them. Never any cine footage of a device being powered up and lifting off the ground. Now, if we take everything that Mr. Searl says to one side, and we say, okay, where exactly is your original saucer stuff then? It was so easy to create. It doesn't require all this new seg stuff that we're talking about. We're back to the old school stuff. Yeah. If we create one of those old school saucers right now, yeah, will it fly? Apparently that's not been done, you know, and even in this age of video and YouTube and webcasts, and you know, they can't seem to put a very small device together and actually film it and put this on the net and change science and the world as we know it. So I have to say, and it was a little bit of trepidation because I don't like being a bastard. I don't like being a bastard really, but with a bit of trepidation that really what you're dealing with Mr. Searl is the emperor's new clothes. It ain't there, but everybody has to pretend and imagine they've seen it. Yeah, I watched this video, which is supposed to be, you know, the de facto video talking about the Searl effect and all this sort of stuff. And I watched all the interviews that were taking place. In the video were from people who are connected with John Searl and interested in his technology, i.e. people who are not very scientific and don't know much and haven't seen these things, yeah? I mean, and those people in the video who say, yes, and then they built a saucer and the saucer took off, yeah? They're talking about other people's experiences. They're not talking about stuff they saw with their own eyes, yeah? There's absolutely nothing in the John Searl story video that tells me that these people saw this stuff with their own eyes, yeah? The only person who's seen this stuff is John Searl. The rest of the world hangs on John Searl's words, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to chalk Mr. Searl up to being a bit of a cultist, it seems, because of the way that he operates in trying to get money and people to believe in his ideas without actually giving the final proof. Now this is okay. Take the seg stuff away, because this seg stuff is very deceptive in many ways. I'm talking about the early days. Yeah, the seg stuff, yeah, is deceptive because now you've got a device, yeah, which has not been tested, and this device which has not been tested and is not understood is like a flim-flam device which can basically make people think that they're looking at something fantastic when they're actually looking at something that's quite explainable, yeah? A little bit like when a friend showed me this magnet thing. You spin a little magnet and it levitates, you know? And it levitates. It's not superconductivity, it's just a magnet. You spin the magnet. And some people were actually trying to sell this stuff as anti-gravity technology, and it's just magnetism. It's just magnetism. It's quite sad to see people doing this stuff. And I'm sure John Searl has the best of intentions in wishing the world having, clean power and energy, but I'm very suspicious of his background. I'm very suspicious of his stories, and I'm very suspicious of the fact that if you had a number of flying discs that could take off and fly around, that you wouldn't have had people on hand with cine cameras whilst your radio hams were all there around the country ready to receive and do all this, vectoring work with your UFO, that you'd have had the world's press and your own cine camera there to film the fucking footage. Boo! Bloody hell. It's that basic. It's that fucking basic. I mean, I'd love to believe John Searl. I'd love to believe him. He looks like a nice guy, He's supposed to be deaf. I think there's more to it than that. I think there's more to this story than meets the eye. So I'm very sorry if I'm wrong. I'm really very sorry, but I don't think I'm wrong on this. John Searl, if you're right, I really hope you do get your technology working, but I just think it's yanking people's chains for a couple of quid and a bit of attention, personally. Seen it before, seen it many times, and it's whiffle waffle and there's nothing there. Or if there is, then Mr. Searl, go and make one of your original early original discs. Go and make one and fly it. I'll bring a video camera out. I will. I'll bring news teams out, and if you can fly it, great. Hello, this is Matthew Williams, and I'm a bit pissed off because it's about the fifth fucking time I've tried to record this video, And I'm running out of bloody things to demonstrate to you now because I need certain substances which I'm running out of. So let me just show you something. Right, John Searl story. Claim is made that the rewind company that John Searl worked in was in possession of very specialist equipment to magnetize stripes onto surfaces, and this was required in order to make the effect, the magnetic Searl effect that was mentioned by John Searl. Now, I've basically got some neodymium magnets here, which are the rare earth magnets that I mentioned about in the video. Now, this is a snuff container. It's magnetic. It can it's basically, you know, these magnets will stick to it rather. So the Searl effect doesn't strike me as anything really that peculiar, because what you've got here is basically a magnetic attractor or a magnetic repeller. Now, if the magnet's the right way round, you'll see that they will repel. But I think at this point they're going to attract. There we are, so they're going to attract. Now, what you've got to do is you've got to do it again, and you've got to find which way the magnets go to repel. So let's turn the magnet around. Okay, so watch it now. You turn it around the other way. Okay, and then suddenly it doesn't want to go towards the other one anymore. It repels. Hang on. Oh God, it does do that sometimes. Hang on. But the basic effect of the Searl machine is that if you get, there we are. See, so there's no strings or anything attached to it, but it's basically magnetism. So you push this one towards it, and the other one goes, no, I don't want to be there, like that, and then it pushes around, so it goes around. Okay, it would work upside down as well. Let me just, if we do it upside down, okay, I'll turn it around the other way so you can see there's no strings or anything attached. So basically, this is exactly the same. There it goes, see, you know, boom, boom, boom. It's like, no, I don't want to be close to it, so it moves around. Now you can do this with multiple magnets, but I'm probably going to get the, I was going to get it the wrong way around, 50-50. So take it off, turn it around the other way, and then we've got something similar now to a Searl effect generator. Oops, that one flipped around, but that's the Searl effect generator. There's nothing magical or weird about that, okay? Because that's all it is a series of magnets which are repelling each other around a metal disc that they're sticking to. Now, the point being, with magnetic striping, now they're talking about a magnetic stripe being printed on the outside of a surface, and it needs to be very special equipment to do this. But as we all know, magnetic stripes exist on credit cards and tapes, videotapes. You know, they're all magnetically stripeable materials. They've been around for a long time. Now, here's another magnetically stripeable material, is metal. Okay, you can do it with metal. Now, this metal is not magnetic. Okay, now you've got, how can I do this? I'll put this screw so you can see it. Okay, now this is not magnetic, or at least shouldn't be. So there we go. Oh, it is magnetic. Hang on, let me find you something that isn't magnetic. I've done this experiment a few times, and I've tried to demagnetize that earlier on, and it's retained the magnetic field. So hang on, I keep losing the bloody thing. I'm not stopping this video because this will be number 6 freaking video I do otherwise. Right, here we go. Right, now this should not be magnetic. There we go. Oh, you can't see it. Balls. Right, here you go. Look, it's a knife. Yeah, it's a Stanley knife. It's not magnetic. Now, I'm going to take the same Stanley knife and put that in my mouth, and I'm going to get the neodymium magnets. Okay, I'm going to take the neodymium magnets. Where are they? Fuck. It's science at home. It's not good, right? So, and I'm going to stripe the edge of this blade. Okay, like that. I'm going to take the thing. All right, actually, look. Oh, fallen down. Right, there. Where is he? Right, there you go. Come on, pick it up. There he is. He picks it up. You see, it's magnetic now. So don't tell me that you need specialist equipment in order to magnetize things. I magnetized the ruler earlier on, but the video ballsed up. I've magnetized a screwdriver. Actually, no, look, screwdriver. Magnetic screwdriver. Yeah, see? So it's all magnetized. Now that's exactly the same principle as Searl is talking about. You need to stripe the outside of your disc, yeah, and you need specialist equipment to do this. Well, no, you don't, because you can magnetize something and you can demagnetize it by randomizing the forces around the striped area. And so that is just physics bollocks, yeah, that's just physics bollocks as far as I'm concerned, and quite easily provable so as well. Now let's have a look at my other points. They claim in the video that neodymium, right, which is what we got these magnets from, yeah, strong bastards. Neodymium is a rare earth substance. Okay, it's actually the statement is made in the Searl story video by John Searl that it has not been around for a very long time, i.e. It's a recent discovery. Neodymium is a recent discovery. So this kind of like makes you go, ooh, okay, neodymium, yeah, wow, like, you know, this magnetic thing, neodymium. Well, that's just bollocks, because it was first discovered in 1885, and although it belongs to a group of substances called rare earth metals, they're not actually rare. That was just the name they were given, rare earth metals, yeah? So what it basically means is that if you get earth, 38 milligrams can be found to a kilogram of this stuff. That's why it's rare. It's because you basically grind down a lot of stuff to get a small amount of stuff out of it. So that's why it's called rare. It doesn't mean it is rare. There's fuckloads of this stuff about, yeah, and it's you know, its abundance in the earth crust is about 38 milligrams per kilogram. Okay, it's so unrare that it's used in China as a fertilizer. So how rare is this stuff? Yeah. Now, one of the claims being made is that they can't finish unless they have millions of pounds, because they need millions of pounds because of the need the rare earth magnets, and the rare earth magnets haven't been used because they're very rare, you see, and all special. And there's nothing rare or special about it at all. Now, if you're telling us you're using something else apart from neodymium, then you're not being truthful. So, you know, misleading people, which is part of what I'm making this video about, the problem associated with the Searl story. Right, centrifugal force is massive, yeah? If you spin something, then on the outside of an object, or if you spin something on an arm, the faster you spin it, the more centrifugal force you have. Much like a ride at the fairground, where you stand against the edges and then it can go on its side and you will still be there because you're stuck to the edges. Much like a washing machine, when it spins, all the clothes go out to the edge. That's centrifugal force. That's what it is. Okay, now these magnets that go around the outside of the roller that go round, if you watch carefully, yeah, they're actually wobbling back and forth, yeah, wobbling, and as they spin, they're not moving in a very uniform manner. Now, if you were to accelerate those any more than they actually are at the moment, they would fly off. They would actually not fly into the air, not levitate. Okay, we're not talking, you know, we're not talking flying discs here. They would actually just want to move away, because the spinning force makes them want to move out, as in like your washing machine. They make it want to go to the edge, so they make it want to fly off. Now, this seg generator, I've never seen it operating at a measured high speed. It's always just visually blurred enough to be turning around. Yeah, and the reason for this is because if they spun this thing up to any bloody speed, the things would fly off. So it's just a sham. It's not real. It's a sham. Okay, it's just designed to freak out the minds of the weak-minded or the uneducated. Now, don't take that the wrong way, because, you know, anyone that hasn't actually looked into this stuff could be considered uneducated, and that shouldn't be taken personally. But if you don't understand the basics of physics, if you didn't do physics at school, and if you don't understand a few basic things, then this might seem wonderful. And my fear is that basically all this stuff with the Searl story is trying to wow people, wow, and then you don't ask any questions. It's like, well, don't question us because we had the newspapers involved and we had the telly involved and we had hundreds of people watching us flying these things. Let's hear from the hundreds of people, and let's have sworn testament and statements from hundreds of people who said they saw these things flying. Now, in the video which I complained about, there were a few people that actually said that this stuff doesn't work. But the video was carefully edited so that it's almost suggesting that what other people came across when they were doing experiments looking into 0-point energy, they happened to just stumble across what Searl had stumbled across. But the point is that the person who made that statement was very clear in saying, I knew that Searl was wrong. Searl was not going to find an effect. Yeah, and then he goes on later on to say, well, other people who are trying to do other things which have nothing to do with Searl may have stumbled across something that they think was like what Searl was trying to find. So basically what he was saying, but it was all edited to make it sound like as if he was actually backing up Searl, I thought, is he was saying, well, there is nothing there, and I knew there was nothing there, and these other people are trying to find something that isn't there. So I think we should make that clear point. There is no way to measure anti-gravity. Okay? There's no way to measure anti-gravity. We don't know what gravity is, so there's no way to measure it. If you cannot measure something, then you have a hard time convincing people it's there, unless you've got a lot of proof. Now, the point being on this Searl video is they state that around the edges of the seg generator, an anti-gravity field is generated, and that's what allows the disk to fly. So okay then, the seg generator, if it's sped up, which of course they won't do because the rollers will fly off, which we've just talked about, so they will not spin this up, yeah, then the actual thing should lift off the table. It should become lighter, and you should be able to weigh that, yes. Now you can't measure anti-gravity, yeah, because we don't know what anti-gravity is, but you can measure weight. Yeah, so if this seg generator is creating an anti-gravity force, yeah, then it will become lighter, and it will want to take off. Now, much like the UFOs that Searl says he created, but won't recreate now for whatever reason, even though he says they're very simplistic in design. If they're that simplistic, then you can recreate them. If the seg generator, which is this complex magnetic thing, yeah, is anything to go by, that's considered complex. But the original levity discs were considered not complex at all. Well, if they're not complex at all, make one. Make one and fly it, because there's no cine footage of this thing flying. Now, the Wright brothers, even back at the turn of the century, even they managed to get footage of them flying, And Searl definitely had cine cameras around him to show them building these things, but then they couldn't point and take the footage when they were flying them. So what we've got is just stories about people who've seen these things flying. Just stories. Okay? And everything about this Searl stuff is all about believe us because we're telling you a story. Okay, we've got some fancy little googly things to make your mind go, ooh, what's going on? I don't understand this. Yeah, and then you have to listen to our story. Okay, and that's what I think people should stop doing, is stop listening to the story, the John Searl story, and should actually start looking into the John Searl facts. Right, just to bring up some of the extra notes that I've made on this video in finishing off. I'm just going to skip through this very quickly. Searl claims that in 1956 he flew one of these devices, and he said it was crude in comparison to today's devices. Now, if he could fly one in 1956 and it was considered crude, then there's no reason whatsoever he can't create one and fly one today. Okay? So, if he wants to convince people that he's telling the truth, that's all he needs to do, is to create one of these crude devices that will fly. And obviously we would like to see that under controlled conditions where we can see there's no wires attached, and we can see that there's nothing, because this is a self-powered device. You know, this device flies itself, it self-powers, it doesn't require any outside power, so it doesn't need to be connected to any wires apart from to start it up. And once it's started, then it operates on its own. So if this is the claim, then we would like to see it. Okay, if we can't see it, then it's bullshit. Sorry to be blunt with that, but that's the bottom line. Okay, forget all this seg generator and forget all these magnetic bollocks. Yeah, they're trying to just flim flam you. Yeah, just like whoosh 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 whoosh. Now you don't know what we're talking about. It's all magnetism. I'm not interested in your magnetism. I'm not interested in your weirdness. I'm not interested in your physics. I'm not interested in your law of squares. You said you built discs that flew. You said you had hundreds of people watching. So build one and we'll watch it. And I guarantee you we will film it. Yeah. If you can't do that, yeah, then there's nothing there. It's just flim flam. Now, I do believe that Searl is doing this in order to gain credit for himself. He wishes to get money, and he wishes to do it without actually providing anything, because there is nothing. So what he wants is money for nothing. Okay, and I think that's a bit naughty. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Okay, I mean that's my theory. Yes, you have to decide for yourself. But anyway, he says when he first created the unit, there was nothing in books or scientific formulas to allow me to design this object. That sounds false, because there were books on magnetism and there were scientific formulas. You know, Searl says he had to rely on his dreams in order to create it. The point is that Searl just didn't know how to read, so he didn't understand books or formulas, and he pressed on with his devices, which were basically probably things that did catch fire, and that's the reason his house burnt down. And he was evicted from that house, is because he burnt the bloody house down because he didn't know what he was doing. Yeah, I just put that forward as a possibility, you know, in credible sort of rational thinking. Apparently, he enlisted in the RAF in 1950, and then in 1952 he was back in civilian life. Okay, so that's 2 years in the Air Force. Okay. I'd like to know why he left within 2 years. What happened there? Okay, I mean, why did he leave? There'll be records of that. Okay, and why does Searl think it's okay to wear an RAF uniform when he spent so little time in the RAF? Why does he wear RAF uniforms? And why does he salute, do all this sort of business? Yeah, 2 years in the RAF. Sorry, just doesn't add up. Why is this guy doing this? This is odd behaviour. Very odd behaviour for somebody who only spent 2 years in the RAF. Okay, why is he using the title of professor? Okay, he said that he got his professorship, let me just scroll down, from an organisation in Germany. Here we go. It's called Urkund, and it's the German word for a charter, which then shows that he was a professor. It was an awarded honorary title, and it was for the subject of Professor of Mathematical Structures of Creation and Energy. I mean, is there such a thing? You know, it was given from an organisation called the Alpen Academy, and I have not been able to find an organisation called the Alpen Academy online that gives out professorships. I've not been able to find it. So is this bullshit? Is this just a bullshit professorship? Because we do know of a lot of people who do this sort of thing. So let's scroll back up. Right. It says that Searl was a foreman in charge of a 3-man research and development team at East Midlands Electricity Board. Now, I doubt very much that a man with no education, okay, would be a foreman in charge of research and development. Okay, but somebody needs to look into that further. Okay, he was married to Doris Shirley Foster, who was born in 1935, so she would be age 76 now. They had 6 children. John Roy Robert Searl, Roy Roy John Robert Searl, Georgina Doris Caroline Searl, April Rosemary Christina Searl, Catherine Alexandra Christina Searl, Alexander Philip Christopher Searl. Ages from 57, 56, 52, 50, and the youngest being 44. They were born between 1954 and 1967, so there's going to be some of those are still alive. I think it would be interesting to track some of these down and ask them, what's the deal with your dad then? What exactly is going on there? Can you sort of enlighten us a little bit? Just for somebody to look into. The statement is made that magnetism is identical to light and believes it contains a number of spectrum types. Okay, that's not proven. There's no science behind that at all. Showing that you can take a magnetic step-off winding from the perspective of spinning magnets is showing us nothing more than the normal electrical flow that one gets when you have a generator setup. This is what I was talking about earlier on, whereby if you have a winding coil and then you have a magnet in front of it, you turn the winding coil on, it moves the magnet out of the way. So basically when you do that with an AC current, you turn it off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, and these magnetic coils are going to move the rollers around the edge, which is a known effect. There's nothing strange in it at all. So, it's how a generator works. The only difference between Searl's generator and a normal generator is Searl's is not a fixed rotational arm. Okay, he's actually freed up the rotational arm to make the magnets act as their own bearings, basically. I mean, they're acting as a bearing inside rather than being a fixed rotor arm spinning around with the magnets on the end. He's actually taken the rotor arm out, and now they're just a set of bearings. So they're running around inside like you'd have bearings in a car. I mean, again, I don't see anything fantastic in that. Okay, it says that the magnetic field is present when the seg unit is in motion, and that the rollers are held off the cylinder, so held off the outside of the cylinder, so held off by a magnetic force. But at the same time, the statement is made that the magnets are held tightly onto the cylinder so they cannot fly off, which is what I was talking about with centrifugal force. So both statements seem to contradict each other. The magnets are held off by a magnetic field, which means no friction, so they're actually not making contact, which is bollocks, because I can see they're making contact. And at the same time, they are being held on, which means if they're held on, they can't be being pushed off. So this doesn't make sense. Anyway, the statement is made that there's an imprinted magnetic field. We've discussed that. He reckons that the frequency that was being used for the control of the UFOs that he created, his discs, his levity discs, was 1,200 cycles per second, and he repeats this 1,200 cycles. So he makes this very clear. That's a VLF frequency, which is a very low frequency, which requires at least a 10-kilometer aerial, and you need power in the order of megawatts in order to get this to radiate properly. Okay, this frequency use would not only be illegal, but it would just not be available for radio hams to attempt to use this because of the size of the aerials. It is used by the military because they use it to communicate with submarines, but it's not something that a ham would be able to do. It's not something that a ham would have the capacity to do, and if he reckons that he had teams of ham operators up and down the country all helping him, using 1,200 cycles per second. This means that they had hundreds of ham operators who all had 10-kilometer aerials up and down the country. I don't think so. And plus, there's no mention made of the radio equipment that was inside the levity disc that would have been picking up the signals. How would it have picked them up with no aerial inside the craft? How would it pick them up? Anyway, we won't go into that one. Right, there are documents in the background of his room, and I saw one and I managed to read off it that it had a silly statement such as, "This is the material that will be required for Starship Ezekiel." Okay, now this is starting to sound like George Adamski and alien beings and contactees. Yeah, he claims he got a pilot's license at Blackbush Airport. I reckon that should be checked out, whether he did get his pilot's license, because somebody who can't read and somebody who has no education is going to find it pretty bloody hard to pass their pilot's license. I give it to you. So I don't know what his educational abilities are, but if he says that he was uneducated, yeah, then he isn't going to pass his pilot's license. So I think somebody needs to check into that, and that would be very easy to do. Right, we're on video 3 now. Right, this is John Searl continued, part 3. Right, there were claims that in the 1970s, Searl was given a court case over an electric bill for £10,000 because the electricity company claimed that he'd been using that much electric. It was claimed that they had ripped his walls apart to look for devices in his walls, and ripped his and also confiscated items that they found, which they didn't return, which is actually illegal, especially if, as he says, he won the case. If he won the case, then all items would have to be returned. So that doesn't make sense. Okay, from a legal point of view, that doesn't make any sense at all. Okay, that's not to say it wouldn't happen, but it doesn't make much sense. Okay, Searl says that the judge ruled in Searl's favour, saying that Searl was a more clever man than the man from the electricity board. Well, of course, if Searl is giving it this and is like this, then he would say that, wouldn't he? But the point being, there's going to be some evidence out there of this court case, if it at all existed. It may be the court case never actually existed, so therefore there won't be any evidence of it because it didn't happen. And it just sounds good, from a point of view of telling a story, as we may be being led down the garden path by Mr. Searl in many different directions. But it's going to be easy to find out if there was a court case and what the ruling actually was. Now, I think, personally, that if somebody owes £10,000 because that's what they've used on their electric meter, then they owe £10,000. And the fact that they come to court and say, well, yeah, but I've got all these special weird devices that nobody knows what they are, I think the judge is going to say, well, yeah, maybe they're what cost you £10,000 worth of electric, Mr. Searl. Because you don't understand what you're doing and you don't understand how much electric you're using, so therefore you do actually owe £10,000. But to turn around and say, no, actually we're not going to listen to the electricity board, who do know what they're talking about and actually do this stuff all the time and do catch people even stealing electric, so they do know what they're talking about. We're going to listen to you. I don't think a judge would do that somehow. I think the judge would go in favour of the electricity board, but no, oh God, slap me, please. Okay, Searl says that hundreds of documents, quote, this is Searl, simply vanished. Okay, now that doesn't help from a point of view of researching his story. So, but how do things simply vanish? They don't simply vanish. Things don't simply vanish, okay? This is what happens to things. Things are either taken away, stolen, or dumped, okay? That's what happens to things. They don't simply vanish into thin air, okay? Somebody has either taken them away, they have been stolen, or dumped, okay? That's what happens to things. They don't vanish. And if Searl is implying that somebody's come in and stolen his documents, then he shouldn't make that statement, because saying things that simply vanish only asks more questions, and it's a load of bullshit. Anyway, it says that somebody came to resurrect Searl from his own retirement, because he wasn't getting any money to do these things, and people had kind of written him off, and then gave him £2,000 to get him started. Right, okay, so you'd imagine, right, he's given him £2,000 to get him started and see what he's talking about, and then this resulted in a lecture tour of the UK and the US. Now, to me, that doesn't sound like getting things started. That sounds like, why don't we put you on the bandwagon and try and sell your story? Yeah, that's what that sounds like. Yeah, it's not about whether or not you've got a disc that can fly. and can prove that. It's about, why don't we try and get people excited in your story, because then we can make some money when they want to invest in this magical technology, because there are people out there that just aren't really on the wavelength to be able to tell when they're being lied to. Okay, now they might not like to accept that, because people don't generally like to accept that they are being gullible or can be fooled. People don't like to accept that they are in the spectrum of people that happens to. But I bet you any money that if you put these people in front of a magician, yeah, they wouldn't be able to work out how the tricks happen either. Yeah, it's the same deal. Yeah, you flim-flam somebody, whoosh whoosh, yeah, sleight of hand, and you confuse people's minds, and they will believe a lot of things. So anyway, I'm just confused why somebody gives you £2,000 and you can't really get it started. Okay, then we've got the video of the SEG device. The rollers are jumping up and down. You know, the rollers, these things are going around. It's vibrating. So this isn't a device that's working in harmony. This is a device that's working, you know, working in a quite a sort of vibrational standard. And I would imagine that with higher speed rotation, that this device would clearly go off the table and would vibrate itself to pieces. If not, it would become it would pick up bits of metal, because it would be there'd be friction, because it's not moving in a smooth manner. It would actually start to shear off bits of metal, and those would go into the area around the sphere, the cylinder, and it would start to become hot. And if you span it up, it would get very hot and probably melt down. So I think that's what would happen if you actually spun one of these SEGs up. That's why they only show them to you at very slow speeds. Richard Vere Compton says nothing was going to happen, i.e. in relation to the SEG stuff and the experiments which Searl was doing. He watched Searl create the discs. He watched Searl do the SEG stuff, and his opinion as an engineer or an experienced person in electrics was nothing was going to happen, and in fact nothing did happen. So it's also stated that Searl is deaf. Now it appears in the video that he isn't deaf, because he's listening to people and he's answering and responding, but it was stated that Searl is deaf. So why is that statement made? I don't understand what that statement means. Okay, it's then said an Air Commodore. Now this is the best bit, because this must be able to be checked. An Air Commodore spoke to Searl when he was testing his discs in Warminster, and he had one of his levity discs flying, and he used to do it every Sunday. And the Air Commodore found out that he was involved in this, and said, I want to see one of these discs actually going. So the Air Commodore came down, saw Searl's disc flying, realised that it was the reason that people were saying they were having sightings of discs in Warminster, went on the television and said, it's all okay, folks, it's okay. We now know what these UFOs are in Warminster. It's Mr. Searl, and he's just a genius, and he will be really famous one day, and his technology will far surpass things going on in Russia and America, and you know they will sort of bow down to his wonderful knowledge, Mr. Searl. This was said on TV, and apparently it was a news flash. This was a news flash, not a normal news report, but a news flash. You know, a news flash. A news flash. John Searl is the man behind the Warminster Searl. No, I don't think so. You know, news flash, the Queen is dead. Newsflash, the Pope is dead. Newsflash, World War III is coming. Newsflash, Mr. Searl is the author of the UFOs in Warminster. No, that wouldn't be a newsflash. That would be part of the normal news. Why would it be a newsflash? It's not worthy enough information to be a newsflash, in my humble opinion. So, who was the Air Commodore? For a start, Searl couldn't remember his name. Convenient. But who was the Air Commodore, and is there any evidence of that transmission taking place, or is it just more very big waffle claiming things that obviously aren't true? Now, I'm trying to track down some of the people that were mentioned in the video, and I'm going to try and see what they've got to say about the way they were represented in the video, whether they were happy with that or not, and I'll get back to you with what I managed to find. But Searl claims that one of his unmanned units could fly from the UK to Australia in 30 minutes. He's quite clear about that. Now, the distance from roughly somewhere in the middle of the UK to the middle of Australia is 9,417 miles. Okay, that would mean that if this disc got up to full speed, it would be travelling, and if it got up full speed very quickly, it would be travelling at about 18,000 miles per hour. Okay? Now, he talks about you being able to run a manned craft at this speed, but literally, if it was to do it in 30 minutes, there would be a G-force problem, because you're talking at least 1G, I've managed to work out roughly, at least 1G, which is quite a lot of pull power, and possibly 2G. So you're talking 2G. Now, bear in mind that if you're talking 3 and 4G, that's very hard performance maneuvers in an aircraft. That is quite sickening. Yeah, 5 and 6G is about the limit that rookie pilots can withstand before passing out, and that's only for a short amount of time before they pass out. So I'm interested to know how this craft could accelerate, according to Searl, with its occupants on board, with the effects of G-force, to get to 18,000 miles per hour and get to Australia in 30 minutes. Now, with the acceleration forces going up in speed, yeah, and then the deceleration forces on the other side, how could it do it in 30 minutes? I'm just interested in the physics here, and I'm trying to do some rough maths to work it out. If anyone can help me, I would be interested in speaking to you. And what else have we got? What about the friction forces on the on such a craft? What about the friction of air on the outside of a disc that's travelling at 18,000 miles an hour? I mean, that's going to create a lot of friction and a lot of heat. And the Blackbird, which, that could only travel at a couple of times the speed of sound, that used to get very hot. So at 18,000 miles an hour, I would imagine this thing would be coming like a bloody re-entry of a meteorite. This thing is going to be coming really hot. So what about the science behind that? It sounds great to say, oh yeah, we could get to Australia in 30 minutes. It's wonderful, isn't it? But where's the science? So anyway, that's the points I've managed to bring up for the moment, and hopefully you'll have some extra points that you'd like to add.
Hello, Matthew Williams here, bringing you a quick update on the John Searl video. Somebody went on my YouTube page and said that Searl is not using the method that I used, showing you the magnets, in his work, that he's using superconductivity. Now, I know there are claims that Searl himself says that his device becomes superconductive, but I don't think there's any proof whatsoever in the public domain from Searl or from any other bodies to say that they've tested this. So there are claims that there's anti-gravity. That hasn't been tested. There's claims that there's superconductivity. That hasn't been tested. There's claims that there's a reduction in temperature. That hasn't been tested. And also, what was the last one? I'm forgetting what they were now. Anyway, none of these things have been tested. So, basically, I went on to look at the claim that Searl was in the RAF, and it was stated in the video, the John Searl story, or the Searl story. It was claimed that Searl joined the RAF. Now, he was enlisted. Now, it's a little bit, misleading to imply that Searl joined the RAF, because that would imply that Searl himself made the decision to go into the RAF, when in fact it would have been more likely to be part of national service. So elevating one's role in this way by saying, you know, Searl joined the RAF. He was there for a period of 2 years, and then he left. And it wasn't explained why he left in the video. It just says that Searl enlisted, joined the RAF, and was there for 2 years, and then came back into civilian life. Now, that, to me, didn't ring true of somebody that was a real RAF officer, or, you know, sort of a commissioned officer or anything like that. So it's more likely that Searl was there in a non-commissioned officer position, probably national service. If that's the case, then Searl's information won't be on the Air Force roll, because he wasn't there as an enlisted person. He didn't join. So the 2 years corresponds, if John Searl was born in 1932, entered 1950, that would have made him age 18, and left 2 years later. That's perfect for national service. So I think what we're dealing with here is somebody who did his national service and now decides that he wants to go wearing RAF uniform. And I've already had a conversation with somebody who will remain nameless at this point. We've exchanged emails, and he says that he finds it okay that John should wear his RAF uniform, even though he was just basically a national service person. I mean, my dad was in national service. He did his in Singapore, and because of his, being quite a good sort of school student, he ended up teaching people when he was in his national service. He became a teacher. So he was teaching people chemistry, maths, and I think it was foreign language stuff. So, but I mean, you don't see my dad going around in his military uniform. You know, I don't think he even has it. I think it got thrown away when he left. Bottom line is, there ain't many people who did their national service who then go around wearing their uniform. It's a bit weird. Anyway, I digress. It's also been suggested to me that Searl information, that I should look it up, because I am not doing my research, I have been told. I am not doing research, and I'm expecting other people to provide me with answers. Now, I would like you to tell me whether you think this is reasonable or not. Somebody that I am in contact with, who is being very close to the Searl story, has indeed got videos out there with him speaking to Searl. I'm not going to be more specific at this point, because it will point a finger at who I'm on about. Now, let's just put it like this. This person apparently has a title of doctor, professor, something like that, yeah. Now, I questioned the validity of using this title, and, you know, based on my previous experiences, which you're all probably aware of. I'm just going to turn this microphone away. Based on the experiences I've had with people like Professor Glickman, who's not a really professor, and also Dr. William Levengood, who says he got an honorary doctorate, and when it was tracked back, he didn't have an honorary doctorate. These types of people lead me to immediately question when somebody says they're a doctor. It's just a natural reaction for me. What I wanted to know from YouTube viewers, maybe you can tell me whether or not it's fair, I have asked this person who is using his doctor title in relation to promoting ideas from John Searl. He's using the doctor title. I said, was the doctor title in electronics or something like physics? I got the reaction it wasn't. It was a medical thing. And I said, could I see some proof? Now, since then, the communications went from being very large to being very small. And when I said, you haven't replied to me about the doctor thing, the emails have cut off altogether now. Now, I would just like to check with YouTube viewers, do you think it's fair for me to pursue this? Do you think it's fair for me to ask the question, if you claim you are a doctor, can I see the proof? Do you think that's fair or not in this case? I'd just like some feedback on that, because I've pushed the question with the person and said, if they don't wish to supply such information, then it certainly looks suspect, as in my opinion, anyone who's a real doctor or a professor would be more than happy to supply you with information of where they got their qualifications, so that that can be checked. And anybody who's a doctor or a professor, or claims to be a doctor or a professor, who doesn't wish to give that information, that's very peculiar. That's my opinion. Now, I'd like to hear your opinion. Do you think I should pursue that? I just wonder whether I'm being a bit unfair on this one. Then I was accused of not doing my research by this said same person, and they said, if you do your research, you will find out the truth, and then you will change your mind. So I've typed into Wiki. Now, I can't believe I didn't do this sooner, but anyway, John Searl on Wiki. I'm going to read this out to you, because there's a good chance this could get deleted. So it says, John Roy Robert Searl, born May the 2nd, 1932 in Wantage, Oxfordshire, a British inventor claiming between 1946 and 1956 he designed and constructed an open system type electrical generator known as the Searl Effect Generator, SEG, variously described as an ambient energy converting device. Basically, the device is a stepper motor. Now, that's exactly what I said. Yeah, I've said this in my video. I didn't even read this. I've said this is a motor. It's not a bloody generator, you know. And just because you put some pickup coils on the edge and get some, you know, lights to light, they're just picking up the magnetic fields passing the coil and turning it into a small amount of current and voltage. It's not necessarily a generator. It's a motor. It says, after passing part of his childhood in various homes and having finished school, he began an apprenticeship with the British Electrical Repairs Company. Tasks included stripping, rewinding and repairing of electric motors. In the course of his education, he was first confronted with the manufacturing of magnets and the basics of electrical engineering. As noted above, Searl claims he was employed as an apprentice engineer of that company at Gray's Inn Road, London. He further claims that, whilst he gained access to the company's facilities and technical resources needed to make the device, furthermore, that in 1946, with all of the magnetic components manufactured to his specifications, he assembled it in his residential home, 30 Crawley Road, Haringey, London, UK. Searl makes the further claim, once assembled, it started rotating by itself, increasing speed gradually. It finally left the ground and crashed into the ceiling. While Searl was wondering how this could happen, the SEG drilled itself through the ceiling, then the roof, and then disappeared. The same happened to the following 5 other sources quote 9 models. Yeah. Later on, he succeeded in controlling this phenomena and in building a flying machine based on this quote anti-gravity effect, which he named Inverse G Vehicle, IGV. To date, Searl has produced no evidence whatsoever of any of his claims, and mainstream science maintain that all his claims are in fact completely impossible. Searl was convicted of stealing electricity. Now, in the video, you see, they say that Searl was not convicted. They say, because Searl says that he was actually the winner of that case. Yes, but obviously Wiki has got something to say about this. So Searl was convicted of stealing electricity by bypassing his electricity meter and damaging the property of the electricity company. He then engaged in a vendetta against the electricity company. And that's... that is from The Times. The source of that is from Engineer Jailed for Vendetta, The Times, 1983-0105. And then it says, where's number 4 is referenced? 4. I'd like to see that, what that is. Oh, yes. And damaging the property of the electricity company, number 4. Reference for that is, electricity thief risked blackout of the South it says in the Times, which is 1982, 11-26. So these are newspaper articles about Searl and his being taken to court. Anyway, it says, Searl claims the electric company confiscated his home SEG, which incited him to threaten the electric company. According to Searl's own account, a colleague of Searl, Dr. George White, was aware of the home SEG. Searl claims that White saw the device working when he showed up against instructions. Anyway, that's claimed in Professor Searl's book, The Law of the Squares, which I'm going to come to. That's interesting. It says, in 1991, Anders Herford investigated the claims of Searl concerning the devices that Searl claims to have shown, as well as verifying claimed witness reports. None of these claims could be verified. Furthermore, Gunnar Sandberg has never seen any of the effects described. Sandberg, as reported through Herford, founder son of Searl, quote, who has seen discs being suspended from wires so they could be photographed, but who hadn't seen any demonstration of anti-gravity or free energy. Now that's a quote from the son of Searl. Now I was looking into trying to see whether we could track down one of these sons or daughters of Searl, right? And lo and behold, Wiki says that his son says this. Now, this is from the Herford investigation, Part 1, Part 2, and Searl's reply to Herford. And I'm going to read these, and I'm going to reply to you on these separately. But now, if we go to the discussion page for Wiki, we see that this has all been classified by Wikipedia as part of the Paranormal Project, which means that it's not a serious scientific paper on Wiki. It's actually been downgraded. Now, I wouldn't take that as absolutely read, because Wiki is known for very bad information. And this might be bad information against Searl, and it could be bad information for Searl. Okay, the one thing about Wiki is it's a bloody awful place to get reliable information, because it's constantly flipping and changing, where people come on and fuck around with the information. Anyway, they're actually saying that they think because no credible sources can be supplied in this case, that it should be deleted. And that's from 2006, so it hasn't happened yet, but it could happen. So I thought it was just important to make that information available, just in case somebody decides to. Right, there's reasons for his time in prison. Okay, interesting. Searl going to prison. Was that in the video? Searl went to prison? Perhaps because of this clip and constant sniping by one particular critic, the main Searl site has closed permanently, and the others look dead in the water. Someone has recently uploaded a YouTube clip showing newspaper cuttings of the trial reports. Now, I'd like to see that. Since some people may invest in his technology, they have a right to know why he spent time in prison. Can anyone add an article to clarify this? So somebody was asking for this in September of 2007. And it says, the reply is, I don't see any documents relating to that incident, but it did have to do with the electric company taking notice that Searl's home was electrically powered, yet they could not register any usage. It is understandable from the electricity company's perspective. It could mean only one thing. He must be stealing electricity. So they took legal action to search the premise. They arrested John and conducted an aggressive search for the source, even digging up the grounds without finding the source. They eventually resorted to tracing the source by ripping out the wiring from the walls, which lead to John's home SEG hidden within the walls. He learned that his generator was gone. The home was wrecked, and it was to prove to be too much already for his stressed relation with his wife. She then left him. They even ignored his request to return the device, so it's understandable why John was so outraged and angered as to make threats against the company. So yes, he spent time in jail for it. So John Searl spent time in jail, so he was basically found guilty then, I would assume. More or so for his own safety, because the judge recognised that John was very disturbed about the incident. The judge put him in jail because he thought he was disturbed about the incident. Searl and the Searl story video says that John won the case, and the judge said that he was a much cleverer man than the man from the electricity board, so he won the case. So, you know, this is like, whoop, flip it right on its head. I can't believe I'm reading this. This is unbelievable stuff. So, you know, Searle's professorship. Here we are. There. See, I wish I'd read this. Professor. Searle's website claims he is a professor, but his CV does not show any employment as an academic. Does anybody have any sources giving background on this? The title of professor was not given to him by any reputable university. That much is sure. Okay, but that was given by somebody anonymously. After giving a lecture at the University of Munich, March the 12th, 1989, the university officials were so impressed with John's knowledge of mathematical process, named, quote, the law of the squares, they presented him with an honorary professorship with the title of Professor of Mathematical Structures of Creation and Energy. I do in fact have a VHS tape of that lecture. That much is for sure, as other people have public copies of it as well. There is no formal, somebody else goes on to say, there is no formal qualification needed to call oneself a professor. So Searle has as much right to use this honorific as anyone else. Of course, to do so when not employed by a university as a professor is at best a sign of enormous self-regard, and at worst a barefaced attempt to mislead others. Usually an honorary professorship is evidenced by more than a VHS tape, but in any event it is usually the convention that holders of honorary doctorates and professorships do not use the title. So there you go. Not only does he use the title, he dresses up in professor garb. And does it sound reasonable to you? Does it sound reasonable to anybody that after giving one lecture at a university that they're going to give you an honorary professorship? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that's fucking bullshit. I think that's fucking bullshit. I'm going to look up for this video. I want to see this video of his wonderful lecture that earned him his honorary professorship. I think I should get my arse over to this university and get a fucking honorary professorship of being a bloody crop circle maker, if they're that easily impressed. But let's see if I can find it, and I'll put the links in the YouTube video. So that's what I found out so far, and it ain't looking good. So yes, I am doing my research on Searl, and it all seems to be surely unravelling itself. So we shall let you know more as we get it. Hello YouTube, Matthew Williams here. Just a little video to bring you an update on the John Searl affair. And I've been doing a bit more research, and it really doesn't look very good now. I must be honest. I've actually gone into this in quite some detail, going onto many websites and reading reports talking about the real John Searl, not the John Searl that John Searl wants you to know about, but the real John Searl. And well, basically, one of the best videos I've seen that talks factually about this is it contains newspaper reports, and it's by a guy. Sorry, it's by a guy called Flower Bauer. So that's Flower, Flower Bauer, Bower, and it's called Searl Some Inconvenient Truths Part 1. I'm going to put the link down the bottom. Now, this video features newspaper clippings from the Inside Business section of the Sunday Times, which is 5th of March 1978. Now, it goes on to talk about the flying saucer that Searl was trying to build, and that Searl wanted to have investment of £110,000 for it. But then it goes on to say, this is quite interesting, because Searl claimed it would take £12 million in order to get this thing flying, but now he's just asking for 110,000. Then it goes on to say that it would fly from Land's End to John O'Groats in less than 95 seconds, and that would mean, you know, its speed would be 23,000 miles per hour, which is, you know, sort of 18,000 I was kind of estimating at, but they reckon about 23,000 miles per hour. Anyway, then goes on to talk about Searl's arrest. Now, this is very interesting, and if the Searl story is watching this, I think you should definitely watch this video, sir, the Searl story, on YouTube. Electricity thief was a risk to blackout of the South, it says, and it says that an inventor put the south of England's entire power supply at jeopardy because he bore a grudge against the local electricity board. Searl, age 50, Mortimer, Berkshire, pleaded guilty to 6 charges of damaging property belonging to the Southern Electricity Board, the Central Electricity Generating Board, and also Thames Water Authority. He admitted to abstracting £117 worth of electricity, but what he also did is he had tried to cut, nuts and bolts from 400,000 volt electricity pylons, and he had also cut the supporting poles and wires with a chainsaw and a hacksaw. And because of this, he caused damage of £7,000, which back in 1978 was quite a lot of money. Not a lot of money now, but that was quite a lot of money. And it says Searl began his campaign of criminal damage after he was fined for stealing electricity. And then it was said that he then went on. I can't speak today. Sorry about that. He then went on his vendettas to get his own back, and he was remanded in custody, so he wasn't allowed out. You know, after this happened, he was held in custody, and then eventually he was given his sentence. And another newspaper article says, engineer jailed for vendetta. John Searl was jailed at Reading Crown Court for 15 months for carrying out a vendetta against his local electricity board. And this is from The Times on the 5th of January 1983, and it's there in black and white for you to see. And then it basically says that, you know, he'd run his vendetta, and it nearly caused a blackout of the south of England. Now, that's the first bit. I'm going to put the link down the bottom for you to see that on YouTube. Also, I would like to draw your attention to a gentleman who has been backing up the claims over the years of Mr. Searl, and he says that, you know, I really don't know what I'm talking about and I should do some research. Well, I'm doing some research, pretty interesting research. I'm not finding things that are actually going in Searl's favour. I'm finding a lot that is actually showing that he's a bit of a wide boy, because Searl, in the video called, it's a DVD which people who are actually believers in Searl's stuff, even though there's no evidence that it works at all, but they're still believers, and, you know, we all know about belief systems. These people have put out a video. It's called The Searl Story, and in it, Searl is allowed to make the statement that he won the court case. He won the court case, and the judge told him that he was a much more intelligent man than the man from the electricity board. So he won his case, and he got away with it, and it was all dropped. He served 15 months in jail, or that's what he was sentenced for. 15 months, yeah? Now, I'm sorry, but that motherfucker Searl is in his video saying he won the case. Now, black is white and white is black. Searl is a liar. Now, the problem is, as well, as I've been saying, Searl claims he has a professorship, an honorary professorship, and I take exception to this because it sounds to me like a very made-up name for his professorship. And apparently he was given this after doing one lecture for a university in Germany. I don't think universities go giving out honorary doctorates after doing one lecture for them, honorary professorships. Anyway, one of the people that actually backs him up and says, oh yes, he's a wonderful man and his research is great and has been telling me that I need to do some research because I don't know what I'm talking about, is a guy called Terry Moore. Now, Terry Moore runs and is a director of the Big Cats Survival Trust, which you can go and have a look on the net. So type in Cat Survival Trust into Google, and you will see lots of things to do with Dr. Terry Moore. Dr. Terry Moore. Doctor. Okay? Now, I asked the question, as I quite often do. You'll know me now. I'm ever the one to say, can I please have some proof of your doctorate, sir? And he went, well, it's not in physics or electronics, it's in medicine. And I said, right, okay, well, what is it then? No response. And then I pushed the argument and said, well, I really do want to know what your doctorate is in, because you're using this doctorate and using your title as a doctor to actually further your credibility with saying that Dr. Searl is really a good guy and we should listen to him. And I would just like to, hear where you got your doctorate from and what it's in, please. And then, whoop, Mr. Terry Moore, or should I say Dr. Terry Moore, but probably more like Mr. Terry Moore, turned it round, flipped it round and said, oh, no, I'm not dealing with you. You're the crop circle man. You're all crazy. I'm not having anything to do with you. And I said, look, mate, whichever way you slice it, yeah, if you refuse to give details of where you got your doctorate from and what your doctorate is in, then you are probably not a doctor, yes? Because most doctors who've actually got their sort of doctorates properly would be quite happy to give out that information. So if you're not happy to give out that information, then there's something wrong, isn't there? Because who would not want to give out that information? I mean, I'm not qualified to the hilt, but I can tell you where I got my qualifications and when I got them. I got my A-level and I got my GCSEs in Treorchy Comprehensive School. That's spelt Treorchy Comprehensive School, and that's in Treorchy in the Rhondda Valleys, and I think I got them in about let me just think now, probably be about 1989, something like that, it's not a hard thing to do, is it? Especially if you've gone to all the effort to go to a university and you've done all of your professional training and you've done your degree, and then you've taken your degree and you've moved it on to be able to do your work on a doctorate, and then you do your thesis and your thesis is published, and then you're awarded your doctorate. You're going to remember where you did that, aren't you? And you're going to be able to just reel it straight off, like I just did. I've got a bad memory. I got a really bad fucking memory, but even I can remember where I did my education. Okay, so now, here's the problem. I did say to Dr. Terry Moore, or should I say Mr. Terry Moore, why am I fucking calling him doctor? He's not a doctor. Yeah, I said, look, if I have to tell people that they shouldn't be listening to you regarding the Searl claims because you're not really a doctor, it's going to look pretty bad. And I said, if you're refusing to give me this information because you are going to sort of later on go, oh, well, I actually really have got a doctorate and here's the information. It's like, well, that makes you look like a little bastard because you've just obviously been obstinate in order to try and make me look stupid by saying that you're not a doctor. Now, I'm not trying to trip you up. I'm trying to give you every opportunity in order to say that you are a doctor, and you've refused to do that. I set a time limit on when I was going to actually make a statement on this, and the time limit has gone. And you refuse to give the information, which means that there's obviously something wrong. There's either something wrong with your doctorate, or there's something wrong with your attitude regarding, dealing with people who are asking for that information. It's not an unreasonable request. If you are a doctor and you're using the title of doctor in order to gain credibility, then you better bloody well have a doctorate, and you better bloody well be prepared to show people that you do. Otherwise, you, sir, could be acting out fraud. That's what it's called. So Bottom line is, I'm sure he does lots of great work with the Big Cat Survival Trust, but the point being, you know, and this is rather sad to say, has he actually put himself forward as being, I'm the doctor in charge of the Big Cat Trust, right, when he hasn't got any qualifications? I'm really saddened by this. I'm really saddened, because I'm sure the work he's doing is absolutely vital and very, very good for the Big Cat Trust. But using fake credentials in order to get that title, you know, to get that respect, sorry, using fake credentials, it ain't good, whichever way you slice it, yeah? I mean, you know, I'm a supporter of Sea Shepherd, you know, I give them money, you know, I support them, but I don't have to go, I'm Dr. Matthew Williams in order to frigging do it, do I? You know, and if you're backing up Searl and saying, yes, Searl's a really good guy, Dr. Terry Moore, or Mr. Terry Moore, why am I still calling him a doctor? I'm sure there's something wrong with this, yeah? Mr. Terry Moore is basically saying that he's checked Searl's stuff because he's got a little workshop with electronic stuff in his house. Big deal. You know, I've got a little electronics workshop in my house too, and I repair computers. Doesn't, you know, it has nothing to do with my qualifications at all, and neither does yours. Now, the point being, stop using a title if you haven't got the right to use it. But anyway, I would like people to look into this, because I'm really pissed off at people using these titles. I'm really thinking that there's a lot of people out there. When anybody says to you, I'm a doctor, you should say, I want to see your credentials, please. Because this is obviously becoming, you know, a bigger issue here, you know. I mean, how many people out there that are using these titles of doctor have actually got a real doctorate? This is what I'd like to know. And it's starting to piss me off a lot, actually, to think that these people are using these titles in order to stand heads and shoulders above other people. Yeah? When they don't have any right to do so. So, there we go. That's it. Dr. Terry Moore, Searl Energy Generator, Big Cat Survival Trust, and Mr. Searl lying his arse off about saying that he won his court case against the Electricity Board when in fact he lost it and went to jail over it. Naughty, 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 naughty fucking people, naughty, naughty, naughty fucking people, eh? And they say that I'm fucking bad for making crop circles. Hey, Terry, I think you're getting a bit defensive on that one, mate. Yeah, I've made crop circles in the past. That makes me a really bad boy. But guess what? Which is worse? Making some crop circles or calling yourself a fucking doctor? Yeah, exactly.